Yep. The people are speaking out about Joe Biden, saying how they really, really feel. This was an Auburn game and a Tennessee State game. And they were also doing it to his face. You know, Joe Biden was in New York City this weekend. Heckling? Is that how I lost my voice? I'm not going to say anything else, but I have lost my voice for some reason. All right. That's what they're saying about Joe Biden. What are they saying about Donald Trump lately?
Honored. We're just honored. Thank you.
We want Trump. We want Trump. That's what everybody's saying now. I don't think you hear that back home. Everybody's screaming right now.
Again, you know, Biden, his loyalists, they can fool the media, they can fool their own party, but they can't fool the people. They can't fool the people. America lost a war 2 weeks ago, and they're mad. They're really mad. And Joe Biden is trying to hide behind COVID and even trying to hide behind 9/11. Now, there were appropriate ceremonies at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. To be honest, I barely noticed. I wasn't paying too much attention because, well, I myself have my own 9/11 story. The World Trade Center was kind of important to us as kids growing up. We went all the time. It was such a treat. There I am with my big brother on the observation deck, with my on the roof, and then on September 11, 2001, actually reporting from the scene. This is just a few moments before World Trade Center 7 came down. So, and I happen to know a few people who were lost on that day, and I was barely watching the news, actually. As it was unfolding during the weekend. I heard some people say that, wow, white supremacy is still the #1 threat to America. The usual suspects were saying it, so I wasn't that annoyed by it or even bothered by it because I've heard it before, like this guy.
#1 terrorism threat right now in the United States, domestic terror.
Absolutely, and also be very specific, white domestic terrorism. The Trump DOJ, what did they do? They stepped away from that. White domestic terrorism, and we have to specify that for that reason. It is a sickness in this country, and it must be confronted on the federal level, the state, and the local level.
All weekend long, I heard things like that from him, George Stephanopoulos on MSNBC, white supremacy. Now, that is not true. It's not. It's just they're making it up. They're making it up. We all saw what happened last summer. But look, I didn't quite frankly mind or care because these are the usual suspects who say this kind of stuff. But then we heard from somebody a bit more important, George W. Bush, speaking from Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
And we have seen growing evidence that the dangers to our country can come not only across borders, but from violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit, and it is our continuing duty to confront them.
So the implication here is clear. George W. Bush has made this clear over the past couple of months. He's talking about Trump, his supporters, half the country, and he's hyping the hell out of January 6th. This is the way for him, a failed president, to get back in the good graces of the elites, which of course is exactly where he came from. This has been his message for a while now. Again, he is still licking his wounds. I'll get to who inflicted those wounds in a moment, but listen to this.
If you were to describe the Republican Party as you see it today, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as isolationist, protectionist, and to a certain extent, nativist.
For most of his life, he didn't even know what those words meant. But now that he's all about rehabilitating himself and getting back in with the swamp, it's okay to slam Trump. But where does that come from? It's all personal. Believe me, it's personal. Because Trump, unlike very few people, had the guts and the ability to just tell the truth when it came to Bush's biggest biggest catastrophe, the Iraq War.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? It was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
So for George W. Bush, he has all the motivation he needs, right? Just pile on Trump, the mainstream media, Democrats, the establishment, the swamp. They'll welcome you back in, and they'll overlook that little mistake known as Iraq that you, to this day, seem somehow amused by.
The military measures taken over the last 20 years to pursue dangers at their source have led to debate.
See that little smirk? Led to debate. Yeah, like why did we go to Iraq? Because there were no weapons of mass destruction. Iraq, where thousands died. On our side, hundreds of thousands on the other side. It was an avoidable catastrophe, and he's smiling about it. This stuff went on for years after the shock and awe and the invasion and mission accomplished. And we never found those weapons of mass destruction. So what can he do now? Well, he can pile on Trump. That's going to help him a lot. And he can hide behind the troops. Hide behind the troops.
You have shielded your fellow citizens from danger. You have defended the beliefs of your country and advanced the rights of the downtrodden.
Well, that's what the troops are there to do, but under his leadership, that's not what happened in Iraq. Not at all. But again, because he's not Trump and he's willing to diss Trump, this guy is back in everybody's good graces. I want to show you, though, what he's all about. No weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq. In 2004, he's running for re-election. What do you do with that harsh reality? We invaded in 2003 to get those weapons. None were found. How about make a great big joke about it while troops are still dying? I was in the room when he did this.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
Wow, funny. And the crowd is eating it up. And Marines, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and many, many Iraqis had died at that point looking for these weapons of mass destruction. So, I still find it ridiculously offensive. And now, that guy who invaded the wrong country is somehow celebrated. Yet a genuine hero from 9/11, Rudy Giuliani. He was a genuine hero that day. His leadership, it was noticed internationally. He was fantastic. He had the right words. He had incredible endurance. He had the right bearing. Leadership we saw from him. But now, that guy can't even get a front row position at the ceremony. Yes, Pelosi, Schumer, Joe Biden, the Obamas, the Clintons. You don't see Rudy Giuliani. They stuck him in the back. They stuck him in the back. And meanwhile, what was Joe Biden angry at? At one point, nobody can figure out exactly what happened in that moment. The president did not speak yesterday. He did speak from Shanksville, Pennsylvania to reporters, not a formal address. We only had one from the ex-President Bush. But he did manage to get this out to reporters. And this is, by the way, the most coherent portion we could find of what he said yesterday.
How do you get back to that state of unity that you were talking about and that President Bush was talking about?
I may not agree with everything I say, but this idea that, what do you want to do with Biden? I want to box him. I mean, I should be so lucky. But it is the kinds of things, or, you know, stuff that's coming out of Florida, the stuff that's coming out of, you know, Robert E. Lee had been in Afghanistan. You're the one. No, anyway, I'm telling you too much.
Wow. Unity. If you really wanted to bring unity, he could have done this on Inauguration Day. He could have called off the impeachment of Donald Trump. He should have said big tech stops censoring conservatives, and maybe had a few words of conciliation about January 6th instead of putting fuel on the fire. There are so many people now in public, including George W. Bush, who seem to be equating the two. January 6th and 9/11. These are not, they should not be in the same sentence, okay? But they're desperately pushing this phony narrative. Why? Because they're terrified of Trump coming back and terrified that a lot of us want him to. And meanwhile, what's up with his attitude overall, just so condescending to everybody?
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. And by the way, show some respect.
How about you showing respect for the people, all right? You are the president. You were supposed to bring us together in this empathy thing you're supposed to be really good at. We're not seeing it, and the people have noticed, and it is their right to speak out, especially when the media won't.
You're a mud for what you did to Afghanistan. Terrible, terrible.
Don't sniff him.
Terrible.
The people are not going to forget. Maybe it wouldn't be like this for Joe when he went out in public if the media did their job, but they're not. They're not.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.